Hickok 45, and you know I've liked Glocks for a long time. Now I've got a long Glock.
Rolling. Yeah.
Now it's an empty Glock. Yes, this is a longer Glock. And wow, got a strange muffler on it, doesn't it? But it's a Glock. It just happens to have a longer slide, hence a longer barrel. Okay, it's called the 17L. Okay, I think the L actually stands for long slide. So let's take some shots with it, talk about it a little bit. I used to have one of these a long time ago. I know I say that a lot, don't I, about certain firearms. So yeah, the Glock long slide, let me go ahead and take it apart before I get too dirty and show you. This thing has a 6, it's a little bit over 6 inches long, the barrel, 6.2 or 6.3. And it's got kind of a standard spring. This is a 3rd generation gun here. I don't know that they even make this in a 4th generation. And that might be a good reason not to have one. But look at that barrel. Is that I mean, it almost looks comical for a Glock barrel, doesn't it? I mean, it really does. Over 6 inches long. You know, in places where you have to have a 6-inch barrel, like Canada comes to mind. I'm thinking they market a Glock 17 up there, but you have to have a 6-inch barrel. I think y'all help me out there that live there. I know we have a lot of viewers in Canada. I hear from you all the time. You know, this would work if it's available up there, or there might be a reason they won't let you have one of these. I don't know, but that's interesting. A 6-inch barrel, and like the other long slide Glocks, you know, they've got some of the metal relieved here, and of course you've got this cut out so that the slide's not incredibly heavy. It is very long, but it's not really, the pistol is really not much heavier than the other Glock 17s. And I think a Glock 17 weighs unloaded about 23 ounces, something like that, thereabouts. These weigh about 26. This one, and I've got the 34 out here too. It and the 17L, they're longer, but because of the way they mill the slides and the porting up here, or the open space there, they really just weigh about 26 ounces. They don't weigh a lot more. They're both about the same, right in the neighborhood of 26 ounces. And the long slide here weighs just a little bit more, less than an ounce more by my weighing, than the 34. So even though it's a big old long thing, it doesn't weigh a ton. It's just not like, you don't pick it up and feel like, wow, this thing is barrel heavy. I wouldn't want to have to shoot this thing. You just don't get that feeling. You know, you got a long barrel out there, but it's not barrel heavy really. You know, and here's the 30. Let me go ahead and compare these two for you. If you're familiar, the 34 is the competition, or the practical tactical model of Glock, which is exactly the same size as the 1911 5-inch. Length in every way, basically it's the same size. That's why it's legal for competition, IPSC and all that. So it's considered pretty long, but look at this this 17L. It extends well beyond, doesn't it? Same frame basically, but just the slide is longer. Let's set up this regular Glock 17 beside them as well while we're doing it. So you see the difference. You got the 17, the short one, and then the 34, and then the 17L. Okay, so that gives you a good idea there on the length and everything, and even on the sight radius. I don't remember all the numbers on the sight radius, but you can kind of tell. Here's the 17. I'll match up the rear sights. Look at the increased sight radius for that front sight there. I'll put the 34 up here against it, match up the rear sights, and you can see you get another, whatever, they're ½ inch or so of sight radius or more on the 17L. So this is the big daddy in terms of size and length, and in the 9mm. So yeah, this is it was intended for competition, and I actually bought one of these in the, I guess it was late 80s, and as much as I thought it was cool, and as much as anything, I wanted that light trigger. It has I think it has a 4.5 pound trigger. It has a better trigger than the other Glocks come with, generally speaking. I don't think better than the 34 though, or even that particular 17. I like the triggers as well on those, even though it might be a little heavier. But it was for competition, and you got a better trigger, and of course you had the long sight radius. But now it was really only legal, quote unquote, in IPSC in open class You couldn't shoot it in stock class or limited. And I remember what I would do with it. I had a Glock 17 I would shoot sometimes in, in limited class, stock class. And I would take the frame off this, and where I'd put my Glock 17 slide and barrel assembly and everything on top of the 17L frame, okay? Because then I'll just have a Glock 17, just like this one, with a better trigger. At that time, it was hard to get a good trigger. You didn't have all the aftermarkets and any of that stuff around. And it's mainly, though, I still don't use aftermarket triggers, but the triggers that came on Glocks back then were usually really mushy. Almost all of them were just mushy and not very good. At least this one, it was mushy, but it was light. And it's still, I'm not all that impressed with the crispness of it, but it's a pretty good trigger. All right, 17L. Pretty neat, and I would shoot it occasionally in open class, and then I'd take like I say, take the 17, upper and put on it and shoot it in limited in the same match, basically, same event. So and I don't know, somebody talked me out of it one day, and then I didn't have it anymore. So now what happened too, give you a little history, once the 34 came out and is legal for limited class, and it's the same size as a stock gun. Like I said, it's the exact same size as a 1911. Even though it seems big, it's 1911 size, believe me. Then, and it's got a longer slide, you get longer sight radius and everything. So it kind of obviated the need for this anyway, and you couldn't use this in limited class. And so they kind of cannibalized their own firearm, Glock did, at least in this country. And so they don't really import as many of these, the 17Ls, into the United States. And they do different runs of them, they still make them. But I was reading about it, had to kind of catch up on it, that they just will do a limited run every now and then. And so you still see them, they're still available, but then they might not be available for a while, and then you'll see them pop up again. Because, I don't know how much you gain. There are people that use them, but I don't know how much you gain over a 34. But it is the longest by far, and it does have a 6-inch barrel. You've got a really nice sight radius. And of course, with a 6-inch barrel, you're talking about getting the most out of a 9mm cartridge. If you're starting out with like a plus P or something, or a plus P plus, you're really cranking by the time you get out of that 6-inch barrel. Okay. One thing I noticed too, I'll shoot the red plate over there or at it. I haven't messed much with the sights. I don't want to mess with the sights. Again, this goes to E-gunner, and unless it's way off. And actually, I think it was shooting a little bit to the right, but I'm going to try the red plate. Got him. Now I'm going to try the gong. Damn. Well, my ears in too tight. I can't hear am I hitting that? Let's see. Yeah. Okay, I couldn't hear those first few shots, whether I was hitting or not. One thing I noticed, I brought it out the other day, and I was shooting the red plate, different things, and I wasn't looking for it. I just noticed that bullets are getting there pretty fast. They're really bang. Kind of like when you're shooting a rifle, there's a big difference shooting the red plate. As soon as you pull a trigger on an AR, it's either hit or you don't, it. With pistols, it's usually bam, clink, bam, clink, and depending on what you're firing, of course. But I just noticed that, wow, it's hitting it awfully quick. And so it's just the added velocity. And it wasn't because I was looking for it. I wasn't even thinking about that. But I've shot that red plate and those animals so many different times with so many different firearms, I couldn't help but notice. Now, for some reason, though, even when you shoot with this, the bullet gets there faster, but the sound coming back doesn't come back any faster. And I don't know, I have to ask you folks in Kentucky why that doesn't change either, but that still seems to be the same. So yeah, I've had some history with the S17L, and I remember it being a good shooter, really good shooter. And when you got that kind of sight radius, it's hard to beat. It's hard to miss. If you're someone who would be interested in a firearm like this, okay? Well, for one thing, it's a Glock if you like Glocks, and it's novel. It's kind of a novel firearm, no doubt about it. To have a regular old Glock 17 with a barrel that long and not have some humongous 40-pound slide. Like I say, it's really not much different than the others because of the way it's cut. So you don't have barrel heaviness to it. It's and I've got it loaded here. I didn't make it hot, did I? No. You've got a longer magazine release there, and you've got a little bit of an extended slide lock there. And other than that, it's pretty much your basic, Glock 17 lower with a nice trigger. Okay, adjustable rear sights. Okay, for elevation and windage. Just a long slide. That's why they call it the Glock 17L. We haven't finished honoring Kentucky here, so let's finish that up. Ha, nice. Okay, Kentucky, being a smart aleck, just because I make fun of you. Take that. All right. No matter what you're firing, you've got to get a sight picture and squeeze the trigger at the right time, don't you? Mr. Cowboy, oh, there's some cinder down there. I'll got another magazine here in my mag pouch pocket. Now, to show you, it's only the slide that's longer. I've got a, what is that, a Phobos holster. It actually clips in and works fine. It just sticks out. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Again, it's for competition. But now, just because you have a long slide, if I took this to a match, an IPSC or an IDPA match, on a Saturday and shot through, and then the next day I shot this gun through, the 35 or the regular 17, it may not be much difference. So much, it still depends on you, how you're shooting, whether you see the sights. So here I am with a competition, supposedly the ultimate Glock in terms of sight radius, and I couldn't hit that 2-liter there. So it just depends on you and the day and whether you're pulling a trigger and letting it break when the sight is on the target. Let's empty one of these mags since we've got a pretty good trigger. Pretty good trigger. You know what? I don't think that blue tank down there has been shot enough. Boom. Just wanted to move him a little bit. That's one of the fun things about a 9mm Glock. You just can shoot, and enjoy them. They're going to work. They tend to work. For most people, they work. I'm just shooting 115 grain ammo. That's another thing that indicates is kind of proof that slide and everything is set up properly, because I just happen to have all that handy. I have some 124 somewhere. It's hard to get the 124, it seems like, but which I prefer really over 115. You have fewer problems with 124 grain 9mm in my experience generally. If you have a problem with a hang up or something, the ammo is a little bit underpowered, just a little bit for your particular pistol, it's quite often it's because it's 115 grain ammo, and especially if it's a bulk pack of some sort, it seems like that is more likely to bring on problems than 124 or 147. And by getting to the point here with this long slide and everything, you would think that, boy, wouldn't be surprised if you had a little trouble with 115 grain ammo, but it's set up to shoot all that, and that's great. So pretty interesting pistol. I gotta shoot one more mag. I have a hard time hearing. Maybe it's because it's those 115 grain bullets, but got my ears in too tight or something. Hearing it hit some of the steel. I'm gonna try a pig. Yeah, that's one way to solve the problem. Just shoot something that'll fall. I'll try the turkey. That'll work. Cowboy, you've not been shot enough. Yeah, that's just me not hearing it. Okay, what else can I tell you about this thing? It's a bit strange. It's a kind of firearm that some of you would, if you're not familiar with it, you just like right now are thinking, wow, I want one of those. Or if you someone who likes long barrels, long sight radius, all your revolvers, you know, are 6-inch barrels, and it's just a range gun anyway. Or you might think even for a house defensive firearm with that long barrel, getting the most out of a 9mm cartridge might appeal to you. But it's an interesting firearm. If you had I guess 2 or 3 Glocks in 17 configuration, there's always again that capability of moving slides around and all that sort of thing. Now one thing about this, with these 3 Glocks I have out today, I could mix and match the slides and frames however I wanted if this were not a 3rd generation. So the fact this is a Gen 3 Glock and those 2 are Gen 4 Glocks, that's really the only reason I can't move this stuff around on those. I already experimented with that. That was funny because I didn't even thought of that, and I was moving like the 34 and the 17, moving the slide back and forth, making sure they still function. I got the slide off this and I'm gonna put it on one of them, and that works. I know I used to do it, but it didn't hit me. Duh. Back when I was doing it, there was no Gen 4 Glock. It was not even a Gen 3 Glock, I guess. Maybe not a Gen 2. I don't know, but it was 89 long in there, 90. So anyway, that's the only thing that prevents that. Okay, and I don't think they make this in a Gen 4. They may never make it in a Gen 4, or maybe they do and just haven't seen it. But the 17L might be a Glock you just weren't really familiar with. They make, let's see, they make this in a 40 caliber. Don't shoot. They make this in a 40 caliber also, and I think it's a Glock 24, and it's this really long one. I think it's kind of the same as this, except in a 40. Don't bet on that, but I think I'm correct on that. You don't see those much either. So anyway, the Glock 34 9mm, the practical tactical, and the Glock 35 practical tactical model in 40, they pretty much took the big bulk of the market away from these, I guess you'd say. But still, it's the longest slide and the longest barrel you can get, as far as I know, in a Glock, unless you put in some aftermarket barrel or something. So 17L, I knew you were interested in it, so here you go. Life is good. Since I'm still here, let me thank SDI for all their help. SDI is a fully accredited online gunsmithing school. Check them out at sdi.edu. We'd also like to thank Bud's Gun Shop and Federal Premium for all of their support. You can find us on Full 30 also now, and you can find the links to our Facebook pages and the other YouTube pages in the description of any video. So I invite you to check out the description in every video, or any video, you'll find what you need to know. And you'd better do it.